Now, as we were hearing earlier, a global economist who was one of the guest speakers at last week's government conference believes the retirement age needs to be increased to above 70. James Pomeroy from HSBC says the ageing population makes the current state pension age unsustainable. So could we find ourselves working into our mid-70s in the future? Well, the Treasury Minister, Allinson, joins us this morning. Minister, Mr Pomeroy says it would be a tough decision for government to make, but one that it should be considering. So is this something that is being considered?
Well, first of all, I thought the government conference last week was incredibly positive. Lots of good things came out of it. But just to make sure absolutely is quite clear, particularly listeners, there are no plans to increase the retirement age on the Isle of Man. Now, we actually have considered this. And this time last year, we published a comprehensive paper which was debated in Tynwald. And it looked at increases to the state pension age. You're quite right, as you've said before, it will be increasing to 68 between 2044 and 46. But when we've modelled our own system, and we're very different to the UK and our National Insurance Fund, extending that forward or bringing those changes forward makes very little difference in terms of the long-term sustainability of the fund. So there are no plans to increase the state pension age. But I think what he did say was very true in terms of right across the Western world we have an ageing population. We need to make absolutely certain we encourage more people to take part in the workforce of whatever age, and we try to get some of those people who aren't economically active at the moment due to illnesses back into the workforce so that we have a sustainable economy going forward.
You did talk there about the sustainability of the pension fund. We know there is some concern there. You did bring forward some proposals to change the triple lock earlier this year that were put on pause. If not raising the age, if not changing the triple lock, what are you going to do to make that more sustainable?
Well, there's a whole range of things that we've consulted on, we've debated in Tynwald. You're right that the forecasts are that we've got a ring-fenced national insurance fund. It's currently over £1 billion, which is used to pay for pensions and certain other state benefits, as well as a small proportion of it going to fund the NHS. That's forecast to run out in 2046-47 if we do nothing. We've already made changes to the pension, introducing the new Manx state pension. But what we need to do is look at the amount of money coming into that then goes out to paying pensions. And one of the proposals that came forward at the beginning of this year was to change the uprating of the state pension to have it far more twinned with Isle of Man inflation rates rather than what the UK do, which at the moment is the triple lock. What we've said after the debate in January is that we will maintain the triple lock, but we need to have that conversation with people about how we go forward in terms of uprating the pension. And if we were to increase pensions according to Isle of Man inflation or 2% as a minimum, then that fund would be sustainable into the future. And that's one of the things that we'll be consulting on next year.
Now, Mr Pomeroy did use the word unsustainable when he was talking about that fund. We know from census data that the ageing population is a real thing. There is a huge cohort in that sort of 50s and 60s at the moment. Just how do you sort of factor that in when looking at things like this? Just how do you kind of predict who's going to be where and when?
Yeah, I mean, next month we've got the latest mortality report, which looks at the median age of people on the Isle of Man, talks about these demographics. The median age of death is around about 81 years. For men, it's 79 years. For women, it's 84 years. What I would say is if you extend the retirement age later and later, people get worn out. They're less able to work as they get into their late 60s and 70s, and so they end up going on other benefits as well. What we need to do is have a decent retirement age for people, but also make sure that people throughout their life, whether they're young or older, get the right support through skills, apprenticeship schemes, so that they can continue working, so they can continue to provide for their families and for themselves. We also need to have that serious discussion about personal pensions, people making sure that they see the state pension as a backstop, but that they plan for retirement in the future. And that's how, as a community, we can go together. But there are no plans to increase the state pension age here. Neither are there any plans to, in any ways, means test the state pension. People pay into it during their working life and then expect and should expect to get it on retirement.
There have been protests in France, I know, in recent years about looking at changing the state pension age there. I think we heard from Italy last week that they're going to be keeping their state pension age where it is. Denmark, though, we know are increasing theirs to 70. How much does the island look at what's happening elsewhere when making these kind of decisions?
We do look at international comparisons, but again, we also look at our own population, how long people are living on the island, how long they're living a healthy, productive life, and how long they're living a life in illness, and which is why we're investing into healthcare, and particularly into prevention, to make sure people have that lifespan. As I said, back in October last year, we published a report where we ruled out increases in state pension age other than those already planned. But what we do need to do is look at the National Insurance Fund itself to make sure it's sustainable in the future, but also make sure that we have this idea of intergenerational fairness, so the burden of paying for pensions for future generations is not put on those working people at the moment. We have that fairness going right the way through the system.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider, so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.